All right, well, this is Aaron Square. I'm just going to go over some of the things that I did at Hex, or at Gen Con rather. Um, just talk over it. I just was there this last week. Of course, it's over now. Sigh. Um, just talk through them. Just talk about most of the some of the hex stuff first. So just put that up front, and then I'll go on to the non-hex things later in the webcast here. So here we go. Let's go ahead and pull up a website here for the hex. Let's go ahead and follow the hex deck lists. Huh? That's not what I want. At Gen Con. There we go. Alright, so I only played 5 of the different decks. I was actually running around doing a lot of different things at the con. Of course, excited about meeting some of the industry people. Let me tell you, if you're interested in getting into any type of industry, convention is usually the best way to go to actually meet people and make connections there. It was really, really just awesome. Just some awesome people. Their motto there at Gen Con is uh, basically the nicest group of people that like the nicest convention goers that you'll ever meet, and it really is that way. So yeah, I'll go into some of those stories after I'm done talking through the hex stuff that I experienced while I was there. So first deck that I played while I was there was the one called I call it the Red White Humans, but it's really the Inspire. It's the Ruby Diamond Inspire deck. And really enjoyed this one. The champion I felt really did add to it. Unfortunately, the charge power that she had didn't work. So 5 charges, she's going to give you a 3/3 and put it in your hand. And then you got to cast it for this casting cost of 4, and it is a human. So it's a vanilla human. It's a 3/3. I mean, it is basically a beast level type of creature. Pretty exciting thing, especially because it would work. Well, I guess it wouldn't really work with Inspire triggers, but if there's something that targeted humans or added to that, it would really help out with that. Guard Mariner is a pretty sick card, actually. It's a really nice 1-drop for this deck. That +1/+0 or +0/+1 Inspire is just going to put you possibly out of range, just out of range of a couple of things, either burn effects or other people's, when you're trying to trade in combat, that sort of thing. This guy, a lot of people have problems with him, so they found him to be a little bit buggy. I had him up with the, well, I call it an enchantment, but it's actually, what is it called? It's a, Blessing of the Fallen. It is a constant. So I had him up with this, and those two things, that is basically the combo of the deck, is basically having him and these, or having this card and anything else. So if you're going to run this type of deck, you're basically going to have to be in diamond right now, into that white color, in order to do it properly, so you can play this card, to play with Inspire. So you can get those triggers properly, because if they kill all your dudes and you have an open board state, this is a little bit harder to remove. That's going to allow you to still get your Inspire triggers off of your graveyard, which will keep you somewhat in the game. Of course, versus a control deck, you're probably still in a bad position. So going back here, this guy was awesome for me. It was my first win of the day. The way it worked was that you would sit down at the station, you would play a single game, and then if you won one, you get 2 tickets, and if you lost one, you would get 1 ticket. You needed 9 tickets to get at all the promos, but you could get them multiple times. So the one promo that's Umezawa, or I forget what his name is, he's basically a big giant 7/7 life linking thing, where his power and toughness, or no, he's not 7/7, his power and toughness are equal to your life total. That's what it is. And to get his alternate image, you could get a playset of them if you wanted to. Or the champion, you really only need 1 of. So I have the champions here. You had Gax. Just for signing up, you got this guy. You got Gax, and I'm sure you guys have seen some of his powers there. Um, Beyond that, you had, I guess I should make the screen a little bit bigger so you can see that better. Here, hold on. Yeah, that'll help out a lot. All right, so yeah, there you go. So you got Gax, and then you can see his powers there. As you level him up, he gets better and better and better. And then you also got the Shadow Knife Troubadour. Um, he's like a Shadow Bard type of guy. I call him a Shadow Bard. And there's his abilities right there. This was the guy you had to win, and he cost you 5 tickets. So he was the most. The ticket totals were 1, 3, and 5. So for 1 ticket you could get sleeves. For 3 tickets you could get Umezawa, and then for 5 tickets you could get the mercenary, I believe. Actually, I have an image of the tickets. So let me pull that up real quick so you can see that. Document. It's in my pictures. Gen Con. So here we go. There's the ticket. So you can let me just swap this back. Yeah, there you go. Now you can see the ticket. So yeah, there's the sleeves, which are after the guy. Yeah, just like what I said. So there you go. That's what the tickets look like, in case you were wondering. All right, so going back to the different guys here. So we've got this the Legionnaire, Gawain. Let me just pull it up. It'll get a little bit bigger. All right, that's good. So yeah, one of my favorite cards of this deck. He's costed well. I mean, like I said, in this game, everything's about a turn slower than it is if you've played other games that are like this. Magic. But that's good that we're starting slow like that. This guy, another unique, basically it gives everything haste or speed. So just a really good one, solid. I mean, he's a 2/2 for 3, and that. It is what it is. This guy is going to inspire your single guy, so he's not a lord type character where he's going to give everything +1/+1 right away, but he is costed very well. He's got that nice front end of 3 for the 3 cost. I think that's very, very reasonable for this guy. So this guy's going to be a must in the Inspire decks, especially because white is going to be one of the primary colors, or diamond is going to be one of the primary colors. Pyromancer. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty good. Gives him a little bit more front end. Of course, it can easily be dealt with on the back end, but it is what it is. The nice thing, though, is that this combos really nicely with the Sniper. So you can pump something up and then Sniper something, or send some damage yeah, you can send it straight to the head if you wanted to. So I'd say that this guy is, because of the cost, maybe I think I'd rather be sweeping the field with Gawain than I would be playing this guy, but I could be wrong about that. It just seems like typically a rule of thumb when I'm playing aggro and I'm looking at those types of decks is I'm saying to myself, all right, if I draw 4 of this card in my opening hand, how bad is it? And drawing 3 or 4 of this guy in your opening hand is pretty bad because you're going to be inactive for quite a while. Typically you would say 5 turns. I would say 7 turns, because basically turn 1, hopefully you're dropping a resource. Turn 2, you're dropping a resource. Turn 3, you're dropping a resource. Turn 4, it's iffy if you're going to drop a resource. So a lot of times I'm thinking my whatever 4th resource is going to come between turn 4 and 5, and then my 5th resource is going to come somewhere between 6 and 7. Without any type of ramp or any type of something that's going to draw lands and put them into my hand, or draw resources and put them into my hand, or whatever. Let's see what else we got. Shield Trainer. Yeah, it gives them that steadfast. It's a solid. I mean, it's a 2/2. It is what it is. Talked about that guy, right? Sword Trainer. Right, and this is another effect. I mean, it's a little bit more expensive than the other guy, so this may be a one of, or by itself, it's not the greatest. I probably wouldn't play this guy if I were to put together this deck. Blessing the Fallen, we talked about that. Burn, of course, is Burn. 2 damage. A lot of things seem to have that 3 toughness. All weekend, my biggest play mistake was burning something and not killing it, because I would look at the number on the left of the card, because I would think that the card was turned the other way, because I'm used to a person playing cards and them facing them, not facing me. So that was my big play mistake of the weekend. All weekend, at least 2 or 3 times, I burned something when I looked at its power to kill it instead of its toughness. And so you got to remember that the nice thing about this being a digital TCG is that everything's going to be facing you. And so when you look at power and toughness, the power and toughness are always going to be facing you properly. So just something to keep in mind. Inner conflict, again, this is a nice pacifism type effect. You know, troop can't block. It's permanent. You might find a way of either shuffling it back into your deck or pulling it out of your graveyard to play it again. So very good. Much better picture than what I like. Of course, the resources. So that's that deck. So moving on to the next deck that I played, which was the Mono Blood or Black deck. This guy, some people were down on him in the cast. I really did actually like this guy. You know, I mean, he's much more of a control-y type of champion to me. You know, deal 1 damage, gain 1 health. It's going to kind of keep me in the game. And on the late game, like if I just need to push through a little bit of damage and we're at a stalemate, like if they're at 2 or 3, then this could get me there. But other than that, I mean, he's kind of, I mean, 2 charges is pretty cheap for that ability too. So, I mean, I did use that ability quite a lot and it worked just fine. This guy, people were having fits with all weekend. He would die and he would just sit in the graveyard. So actually on my game 1, the person that I was playing against had this guy, and saying that's exactly what happened. He died and he just sat in the graveyard and he didn't produce Pile of Bones. The other interesting thing, I guess, is that he dies, goes to the graveyard, and then he produces Pile of Bones. So he's still in the graveyard. So it's technically having 2 cards, which could turn into some sort of card advantage if there was like a mass, a way of pulling a bunch of like 2-drops or something out of your graveyard and putting them back into play or putting them in your hands. I mean, that could turn into a lot of card advantage down the line. Moving on, Corrupt Harvester. I mean, this guy was, yeah, pretty solid. 4 cost, but the 3/3 lifelink, I mean, or life drain is really good. Also, the evasion that it has, where it can't be blocked by artifacts or blood troops, which harkens back to the old fear mechanic. That is very, very good. So this is probably one of the best creatures that you had available to you in this deck. So if it came up, you should be trying to defend him and not just trade him away. This guy was one of my favorites from the deck. I talked about in the podcast with the other guys that this guy could really get out of hand very quickly. Anything that can produce you more dudes just for nothing is usually a good thing in these types of games. So making a bunch of these spider spawns, again, you know, they could become blockers, or they could become very offensive very quickly. So playing, you know, you could easily just play this guy in a control deck, sweep the field, throw him into play, and then if your opponent can't deal with him, he's going to get out of hand very, very quickly. I mean, it's basically going to deal 3 damage, put a guy into play, next turn it'll be 5, then 7, then 9. I mean, that's just so much damage. If they can't, that's only 3 turns of damage rounds, where if they can't, they have nothing on the field. They can't deal with it. Corpse Fly was not one of my favorites. I felt like it was a little bit overcosted. I mean, you are getting a body, but typically I would have felt maybe a little bit better paying 3 for this if it had like a 2 back end. I don't think it needs more than the 1 front end. Yeah, I mean, if they're going to put the 2 in the front end, it probably wouldn't be able to have flight. Of course, it has evasion, which is nice. I mean, it's going to push through damage, but it's a horrible blocker in a deck that feels very control-y to me. So maybe this card would go better in a deck that's a little bit more aggressive. Yeah, it's maybe something a little bit better. This, of course, is just a 2/2. You know, this is a vanilla creature. It's whatever. This guy I thought was really, really interesting for me because he could completely in the vein of this deck, he could completely invalidate a card in your opponent's hand. So with the discard and this guy combined, very control-y elements. So maybe I'm down on the Corpse Fly a little bit too much. Maybe he's better than what I thought. But I really like this guy, especially if you have a way of bouncing him with like Mariner or something like that. Especially because most likely when we're playing control, it's going to be blue and black or diamond and sapphire. Or not, no, not diamond. It's going to be sapphire and blood. Sorry, sapphire blood is I'm predicting will be the if you're going to play straight control, that is most likely going to be the first archetype that's out there for straight up control, where it's going to be very few creatures and a lot of denial and some card drawing, of course. Sacrifice 2 troops, can't be blocked. I mean, yeah, I really don't like this guy at all. His drawback is pretty heavy. I mean, I guess you could maybe throw him in with the bunnies because like they have a lot of extra creatures, just spare creatures laying around that you could throw. A lot of O1s, and so maybe he would be useful. But at the 6 cost, when you're sacrificing 2 guys, it just seems way too steep. And there's probably better things you can be paying 6 for and not sacrificing dudes for. I mean, the sacrifice does nothing for you. It's just part of his cost. Also, if your opponent were to counter this, typically in other games, as soon as you play this card, you have to pay all the costs for it. So if you counter the 6, you still are sacrificing 2 guys, and then they counter it, and you also lose this guy. So you just lost a lot of stuff. So whenever it is that it has a sack ability and it comes into play, be thinking about that. Of course, killing it does the same thing, but the 4 damage to this guy, I mean, more likely he'll be pacified or he'll be murdered than anything else. Life Siphon. This was another one that people were having a hard time dealing with. The interesting thing looking at this one is this is one of the first cards that's really going to use that threshold mechanic, because this is a cost of 0 card that is blood, has the threshold of 2, but basically there's no loss on the X on this one, whereas typically with other games you have to pay like whatever color it is and then X. So with this one, that is very interesting to me, and I hope we see more X cards like this, where it is that you'll need to come up with some sort of threshold, and then beyond that, it's all gravy from there. So very interesting card. It would have been nice if it could have dealt half damage or some damage to a creature to give us some option for removal, but then also on the late game, just finish out, if your opponent's at 5 or something like that, or if you top deck this and you have 10 resources into play and just go straight to the head. You just removal is at a premium in my opinion right now in the format. Every color has their version of removal, which is kind of setting the tone and setting the flavor for how things are going to be. The heaviest removal is in Ruby, of course, as it should be. Which is something that they've kind of gone away from when you're talking about Magic and that sort of thing. Let me pull up the website in case someone pops into my channel, because, yeah, just in case. Alright, looks like no one's here. Let's pop this out so that way I can see chats. Alright, so moving on. Murder, of course, one of the best removal in the format right now. Again, everything's about a turn slower, so this is fine. The cost on it. It only costs 1 threshold, so you can splash this into a lot of different decks. Very, very easy to use. It has no restrictions. Just remove it. Just destroy the troop. Is it attacking or not attacking? I don't care. Remove it. Is it just sitting there? No, just remove it. It's one of those things where there's no drawback to this whatsoever right now, except for the cost. But this, again, is a reasonable cost for this effect. This is another card that caught me by surprise. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in the Bunnies deck, but drawing cards is always good. I don't know if this is going to be great. I mean, I suppose you combo this with Bone Warrior, and you can draw 3 cards, which is nice. So the cost is really good for drawing that many cards. Drawing 3 cards for 4 is pretty ridiculous. It's interesting to see that they gave this to Blood, although it is in the vein of Blood. You're going to sacrifice your own dude in order to get this effect. You don't just get to draw cards. But drawing 3 cards it's a lot. This one, pay 2 life, draw a card. Of course, a great card. This is going to push you into maybe a little bit more life gainy type of deck, although you're still not going to play straight life gain cards. You're going to have them either with some life drain, or it'll be on a stick with like a creature where when it comes into play you gain some life or something like that. But this is going to give you that card advantage. You need to take control of the board. Again, another thing that just pushes me to believe that Blood and Diamond is going to be the control deck of choice for people that want to play straight up control. This one I didn't get too much information on. I don't even know. I didn't see this one come up for me. Again, this is going to make probably not in the control deck because you're going to be playing 2 different resource types, but if you were playing straight Blood, this would be probably pretty good for you. You know, it deals damage to a troop, so it is removal. It's very pricey removal, though, at that 5 cost. It is splashable, but there's no reason why you would splash it because you need to have resources in play in order to make it work well. On the late game, it's probably... This card is probably a lot better than Life Siphon because you can remove creatures with it. However, it is restricted by the fact that you need to have resources in play to deal a lot of damage. So that's the difference. I say Life Siphon is probably more of a card when you have multiple colors that you've gone with, or shards. And then Terrible Transfer is more of a mono shard deck type of thing like this. So it's great for this with 25 blood shards. I mean, you know, dealing 25 damage to the head and gaining 25 life is pretty good if you actually ever got there for some reason. Moving on, the next one I tried was I believe it was the healing. Where is it? I missed it. I skipped right over it. I know it. Yeah, I think this one. So this is the life gain deck. Some people said it was their favorite deck. It was all right. It was pretty good. It didn't have a lot of interaction, in my opinion. The way you had to remove things was with basically a pacifism type of card, where it's the creature's still there. It just can't attack and block. And I believe it can't use abilities either with the Inner Conflict. That's what it is. Although it did have 4 of them, so I had a whole playset this night. Yeah, so the biggest problem with this card is, you know, troop can't attack or block, but it's still on the table, so it can still be sacrificed, and you can still use the activated abilities on it. It doesn't tap it down or do anything like that. So this is something where you got to really make sure you pick the right thing, because if you put it on like a Mana Dork or something, someone's like, well, I wasn't going to use that to attack with really anyways, so what's the point of this? So you got to make sure you're casting it properly, putting it on the biggest threat. Another big mistake I saw a lot of people making during the tournament, you know, these people are probably, some of them are very new to card games, is what will happen is, just because they can cast a card, they will just cast it right away. And so the biggest thing with this is with removal like this, typically what you want to do is concentrate on casting your threats first. And then if you can't deal with something, or if they cast something really big like that Legionnaire Gwaine or a Mushwaki or something like that, you need to be able to answer it. So that's why you need to hold on to this. Now, if you draw a second one, or depending on what your hand looks like in the board state, of course, that's going to change the decisions you make. But typically, you want to hold your removal. So that was the biggest thing, is I would see people remove my turn 2 card. And my turn 2 card would typically not be amazing. So, and whereas I'm sitting on a turn 3 or typically a turn 4 or turn 5 card, which is just a bomb. It's going to blow my opponent out, and now they've wasted their answer to it. So just something to think about when you're working on becoming a better competitive player. So starting off here, this card, very, very much a house. This is going to go in, I would definitely play this again in the Inspire deck. Just because you're playing all these creatures and stuff's going to come into play, it's going to help you stay in the game. It's a nice first turn drop. The only downside is it's only when your troops come into play. It's not when any troops come into play. So in a multiplayer game or something like that, this is not as good. Um, but this could also be comboed with the whatever they are, the bunnies basically. You put 3 bunnies into play, gain 3 health. That seems pretty good. I mean, it seems like a decent combo, but it's not something you would depend on. So this guy's going to let you recall troops, which is really important for those bombs. When it is that your opponent deals with those bombs, you need to be able to pull them back, put them on top of your deck. It's not the greatest because it's not putting it into your hand. It puts it on top of your deck. But it does buff the card, so it makes it even stronger the next time, so it's harder to deal with. At a 6 cost, this guy is maybe a 1 of or a 2 of most of the time, especially if you're playing a straight aggro. He's probably not going to see a lot of play, to be honest. His cost is so high for his power and toughness, and his effect is kind of, I'm sure there are better ways to get that effect. But, if there's a lot of bounce, maybe he'll see, but at max 1 or 2 of, I'd say, if you're going to play him at all. This guy was a house all weekend. Right, yeah, so you would buff this guy's defense and he would get even crazier because it's equal to his defense. So this guy is another one that would combo really well with the Inspire mechanic of the 1-drop in there, where it's giving him plus defense when it is that he drops, and he would get the Inspire off of that. So a 4/4, somewhat vanilla, but he can get out of hand pretty easily. So very, very good card for this deck because he has that interesting mechanic. Mariner, yeah. So yeah. Again, this guy with this guy already in play, or 2 or 3 of these guys. This guy that Outrider can really get out of hand, especially if you give him some sort of life steal. This is one of my favorite cards of the deck, the format. He actually didn't. His ability didn't look like this. It looked like 3/3. It looked all the way down. It was like 3. This target troop gets this, and then it said 3, and then it said gain flight, and it just went through, and so it gave you different options. You can permanently buff him. You can give him flight. You can give him some evasion, or you can make him into a blocker in the air if you're playing against that deck. He's just very, very versatile. This guy's going to be a staple throughout the format. I can guarantee it. As a 2-drop for a 2/2 that does all this craziness that you can activate at the end of your opponent's turn. I mean, you can make it look like this. One of the keys to playing a game like this is making sure that you can respond, or at least make it look like you can respond. Another big mistake I see a lot of new players making is when they're playing, what they'll do is they'll draw a resource and they will just play it out and then look completely frustrated. That's the wrong answer. Even in an open board state, if you have like 6 or 7 resources in play, or just a certain amount, and you draw a resource, you top deck it, you just hold on to it, because it would be better for your opponent to think that you have something or a possible answer to what they're doing, and that's why you didn't play it. Because if you had a troop, yeah, you would have played it in an open board state a lot of times. But if you have a response, some sort of an instant speed something, then you're going to have to hold on to it until something happens. So yeah, another big mistake I see people making. So the life drain again is good. The steadfast, which is basically vigilance, is really good. The swift strike, of course, is one of the token things that you'll see in diamond decks, the swift strike there. So very, very much a strong thing. He's going to be a 4 of in any deck that plays him at all, for sure. That's just going to be how it is. Phoenix Guard Aeronaut. Now, we don't think that we actually saw this guy come up during the convention, so we didn't really get a good feel for him. But he is pretty solid, and he's very control-y, so I could see him maybe going into more of the control. He makes somewhat of a case for you to go into white and maybe go diamond sapphire instead of sapphire blood, but not really enough of one right now, I would say. Because typically you're going to want to be able to sweep, and unfortunately they took this, well, unfortunately, I don't know, they took the sweep out of diamonds and they into blood, which is probably where it needs to be anyways, because that makes more sense. Kill everything, right? But yeah, very control-y card. It probably won't see as much play after people try it out because it might make for some. I don't know. It's only your opposing champion, so yeah, I guess it could really um, make things tough for them. I don't know. We didn't really get. I don't have a really good assessment of it. It does have flight. That's nice, but for 5, I mean, I guess yeah, it's pretty strong. Okay. Um, okay, so this guy, of course, was a big house for this deck. He is pretty much um, one of the biggest things you deal with. You've got your champion, which is going to give you life. You had a whole bunch of other things to give you life. It's per instance of gaining life. So if you gain 4 life, he gets a +1/+1 counter. If you gain 1 life, he gets a +1/+1 counter. But if you gain it multiple times, then he's going to get a counter for each time. So keep that in mind when you're designing your deck. It's not for each point of life. It's not like I cast something for 4, gain 4 life, and then all of a sudden he's, a 6/6, and it doesn't work that way. Um, but yeah, he's very. He can get out of hand if you let him go for too long. Um, he's removable, but 2 for this. I mean, it's pretty good. He's probably going to be mostly in the mono-colored deck type. This obviously the worst card in the deck because it doesn't remove anything. It needs to do something else. It needs to do something else. It could say gain 5 health and put a 1/1 back into my hand, and it's ridiculously better than what it is now. Um, but right now, just gaining 5 health. I mean, it's a staple. It's going to be a staple in this shard color for a while. Cards like this, so get used to seeing them. But if you really shouldn't probably be drafting them, and they probably won't ever see constructed play. It's just the way it is. Gaining life is just basically it's basically at a board state where in an open board state where it is that you need to answer something or your opponent has stuff. If you cast this card, you you basically just extend it like maybe one more turn at best. Um, Plus, it's throwing more copies of itself into your deck, which seems like it's going to make it even worse. Um, if it was maybe a little bit cheaper, that would have helped. But I mean, also the cost is maybe a little bit overcosted on this. So overall, this is really pretty much one of the worst cards of the con. But it has to be in there because it's part of the flavor of that color and that shard color, and that's just the way it is. Also, as a side note, you might be asking yourself sometimes, like, why it is that card companies have to put out all these really awesome, crazy cards, and then all of a sudden we have cards that are just like lackluster, like this one. Well, those cards would not be. I would make the argument that those cards would not be as good as they are if you didn't have cards like this. So you need to have a spectrum of selection. Card companies have to put out stuff where it is that you're getting cards basically. I mean, you're going to have commons, uncommons, and rares, and that's just the way it is. I mean, that's the model that they follow, that they abide by, and even then, just because on the average, most of the people in the community are going to see something and say, it's not a good card. There'll be that one guy that comes along and he'll look at it a different way, and he might be able to make it good. So I'm not saying don't try, but from my standpoint, in my opinion, this is one of those cards that it's going to be around this type of thing where you just gain life and you don't get a body, you don't get removal, you don't get any type of other effect, and it's just going to be what it is. Inner conflict, we talked about this already. Radiant armor. So this is the one you throw this on that paladin and he just goes crazy. He just goes crazy because this is a mono shard deck. So if you had like 5 shards in play, he's now +0/+5, but then he swings for 10/10. Because he's already got a back end of 4 actually, so it would have been a 9/9. But I mean, that paladin goes crazy when you've got this on him. Plus, you can do it. It's a quick action, so it's a one-time type of thing. So you can do it in reaction to, or if you see that there's no blocks going up, you can during blockers you can basically respond by that. So just so everyone's aware, here's all the chances you have to cast spells in combat. Um, First of all, you're going to go to combat, and at that point in time, before anyone's declaring any attacks or anything, priority first starts with the person whose turn it is. Priority means that you have the chance to cast some spells, some instants, or that type of thing. Then the priority passes to your opponent. Then they can cast some spells. Then you declare all your attacks, and then after attacks are declared, the same thing happens. The person whose turn it is has priority to cast spells. Then your opponent has chance to cast spells. Then it goes to blockers. You have to declare all your blockers first, and then you can do all your instants and abilities the same way. Then it goes to your damage step. Right now, as far as I know, damage step is being handled the same way it is in Magic, where it happens and you can't. There's no damage on the stack or anything else like that, like there used to be a long, long time ago for people that know what I'm talking about. So damage will simply happen. It will resolve, and this is first strike damage. So damage that's happening first during the combat round that can actually kill creatures. So in this game, swift strike damage. Then you have a chance again, yet again, to cast some instants and abilities before you go on to regular damage. And then after regular damage, you go to an end of combat, and then you can cast spells one more time, and then you go to your second main phase. Now that sounds really complex to people, but it's important to know if you want to become a better player, exactly when you can do different things. It's really, really important to know that because you need to plan out your combat or be able to see what your opponent's doing and respond to their combat phase accordingly. Very, very important to be able to do that. The nice thing about Hex is so new player friendly, because every time you have priority, whenever it is that your opponent gives you priority, if you have an option to do something, that card or that option will light up for you. It will simply give a nice white outline that's kind of shiny around that card. So if you have an instant to play, every time you could play the instant, you have to pass priority back. Now, the slick thing about it is, the way they've designed the engine is that if you have no options whatsoever, then like it's your opponent's turn and they're doing things, it will not, it won't ask for permission every time. It knows you have no options. So it helps speed up the games. It's a very, very intelligent engine. I can't say enough about how it is, how impressed I was with that. Something that other players may or may not have noticed when they were there at the convention. Again, this is pretty good. This is maybe a little bit overcosted. At 4 is pretty expensive, but talking to Dan Clark on at the dinner there, and I showed him an idea I had for a card, and it had an ability to fight 2 creatures, and it was in the diamond. He said, well, this is good, but this isn't, the flavor doesn't fit properly. And so that's probably why it's costed at the level that it is, because typically white is supposed to be defense, not really attack, and a lot more smaller creatures, that type of thing. But it's not supposed to be just killing people left and right, like you would find out of blood or out of ruby or other shards like that. That is what white is supposed to be, all defense. So a card like this, where you actually get to kill something, at least you have to do it on the attack or on the block, and that's flavorful as well. So going down to game terms, though, the biggest problem with this is if something's never going to attack, you'll never be able to kill it. And there are certain creatures that will never attack in this game. You can guarantee it. Those, you have your mana dorks, which we haven't seen, or at least I haven't seen too many of, but that's a big staple that I hope to see soon. I also hope to see some sort of rampant growth soon as well. Yeah, beyond that, this is a pretty solid card for the deck. It's very draftable. I mean, in draft, this is removal. This is your on the bread scale. It's number 2. You have your bombs removal, and your evasion. I can't remember the rest of it, but those are the most important things. So, anyways, the biggest thing is it is removal, and it is in Diamond. It's probably not going to see maybe as much constructed play as Inner Conflict, but still pretty solid card. Okay, so I did not play that one. I did play. So yeah, we'll move on to the Shin Hair. So this was a surprise for me. I said, you know what? I haven't lost any games yet. I feel like losing a game. I'm going to play the Shin Hair. I didn't lose that game either. Um, so this was just a surprise out of nowhere for me. How decent this was, really. So charge power, create battle hoppers. Battle hoppers are these O1 Shin Hairs. So you got to look at these guys. I looked at them inappropriately before, because basically what you have to do is you have to look at them and say, you know, this guy is here as a resource for me. So I'm either going to sacrifice this guy, or I'm going to block with him, or that's pretty much it. You're going to sacrifice him or block with him a lot of times. And if you get to buff him, that's all gravy, right? That's all good things, you know. But typically, when you're creating these battle hoppers, they are. I look at them as resources. So they're the closest thing right now that I see to a ramp card, and I'll show you what this deck is supposed to be using these guys for mostly. So you've got this guy. You know, like we were talking in the podcast, a lot of sack effects. Sack him. So you attack him with this guy. The proper way to play him is attack him with him, and then see if your opponent blocks with something, and then you respond by sacrificing a troop. That is the play on this guy most of the time. You're going to attack in with them. A lot of times you're going to attack in and not sacrifice a troop because they're not going to block them. Or if you have to be if you're on the back foot, you're going to sit with them, go to blockers, block with them, and then sack on the stack before you go to damage step, like we just talked about. Yeah, here's your Bucktooth Commander. This is another guy that may be overcosted for this deck. I feel like it would be nice if he could have been a 2-drop. But again, everything's a turn slower, so yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You need to have him in play. They may need another Lord effect like this, or at least it would be nice. Maybe you need to have this guy if you're going to play Shin Hair at all, and you're going to play with all those battle hoppers. This is guys of 4 of, obviously, but then it'd be nice maybe if there was some other Lord effect you could get, like where you either had to pay for it or it worked in a little bit of a different way, like a Lord effect where it was like you put this guy into play and then you pay 2, and then everything gets +1/+1 for this turn, or a permanent +1/+1. So you have to pay. So maybe something that costs like 2, and then you have to pay 4 for that effect. So it comes in a little bit later. That's something that would really, I think, help out, especially for people that just want to play straight Shin Hair aggro and they don't want to sacrifice troops. Feel comfortable with that. This guy, is a cantrip. I mean, that is what it is. Turn 2 cantrip, not too bad. I mean, it's a 1/1. He gets buffed by the other guys, is what it is. Picture's really nice. I like the picture there. So yeah. So this guy is probably one of the better ones in there, because when you're sacrificing stuff, he just buffs himself. So this guy is probably one of the best things in there in the deck, because you don't have to sacrifice to do his effect. Also, you can sit with him and not attack in, and attack him with other things, or block, and he's going to still get buffed. And so this is probably one of the better ones. If you're in Blood at all with Shin Hair, this guy is a must for sure. He's a very, very good pickup, even by himself. When you're in draft, if you have a decent amount of Shin Hair, he's not going to be bad. I mean, 2 for 2/1, it's pretty good body. I mean, it's just good all around. This is a vanilla creature. It's whatever to me. The Mushwaki, again, I feel like this guy probably needs to be retooled a little bit. I made a mistake on the podcast because I forgot that he only sacrifices stuff when he comes into play. So that's a huge problem with him, because your opponent can simply respond to that. So it's going to be one of those things where when you play him, it's like, how big do I need him to be? So I would sacrifice, whenever I played him, I actually didn't get a chance to play him, but I would sacrifice the least amount of guys you need to in order for him to either cause a positive trade on the board, either 2-for-1 a trade or something else. So like for instance, if the board state was I have 3 battle hoppers, I have this guy in hand, I'm about to cast him, and there is a 2-2 and a 3-3 in play on my opponent's side, I would sacrifice 2 battle hoppers, making him a 7-7, because on the trade, it's just a bad trade for him now. He has a 2, he can block with his 2-2 or his 3-3, but if I only sacrifice one guy, then he's going to become a 4-4, which is just a single trade, because if he double blocks, I only get one of his guys. So that's how I would play this guy, but overall he's not the greatest. It would be nice, again, I don't see a problem with them necessarily adding on some sort of trample effect. I forget what it's called in this game, but basically something where he could carry over some damage if his power and toughness was at a certain level. I don't think that would be overpowered, given the fact that you have to sacrifice your own dudes to do it. And also, you can only sacrifice Shinhair to do it. So I mean, you can't sacrifice other things. Very flavorful, very interesting card overall, but very costly. Azumi, didn't see her come out either. But very flavorful, very expensive. It would be nice to ramp into a card like this. This is one where you definitely, it's a 1 of or a 2 of. It's your top end card in a deck like this, especially if you're going to run straight aggro and not be trying to hold on. You might play it in control, but there's probably better things that are on shard color for you. So probably not even really there. I mean, typically when I look at really expensive cards, I think, well, can this be a good bomb for some sort of control where the board state is such that I have this card, my opponent has no cards in hand, and it's going to just take over the board state, where he's going to have a hard time answering it. And this, probably not as much, especially the power and toughness. It's decently. I mean, okay, so this is one where if you were to pacify it, it's still going to do its effect, so that doesn't really do anything. Burn's going to have a hard time with it right now because it has a hard time dealing lots of more than 3 damage. Murder is a good, obviously it's a good answer to this. And then the other one, if you're playing straight blood, that one would work too. But overall, I mean, for 7, might be a little bit overcosted. I would like to see it at 6, but again, everything is by 1, so it's probably just fine. So this was a big card for this deck. Huge card. If you decide to go blood and play the bunnies, this card is huge for you. You're going to get to board states where you're going to have all these battle hoppers into play, and you want to draw some more cards, and this is going to allow you to do that. It's a basic action, so you can only do it during your first or second main phase. You have to do it on your turn, but it's definitely well worth it. It's nice. 3 cards for 4 is really good. It's like I'd say a 2 or a 3 of in a deck, depending on how many cards you feel like you're going to need to draw once it is you've emptied out your hand, which is typically what's going to happen in most aggro settings anyways. You want to stay in my lap? Hold on. Alright, yeah, of course you have your Runts of the Litter, which is going to put those 3 battle hoppers, which basically, again, you got to look at those as resources. You just got to look at them as resources. That's the way it is. And then maybe they'll turn into troops later that you can attack with and get some attack value out of, but a lot of times that's what they are. They're blockers and they're resources. So, yep. That's what we do. We use little bunnies as resources. Create some battle hoppers. This seems on the surface to be pretty good, but again, you got to buff those guys to make them worth anything. You need a lot of battle hoppers. Again, they are resources. Lose 1 health, create a battle hopper. I mean, this isn't nearly as good as what it's been compared to is Bitter Blossom. Bitter Blossom only costs 2, for instance. Obviously, everything again in this game is 1 more, but also Bitter Blossom made evasive fairies that were 1/1s for 1 health. That's ridiculous. It basically made fairies that were flying, and your opponent had a hard time coming back from that, and you could buff them. Of course, you can buff these guys too, but you know, this is definitely a card that's very much more balanced than Bitter Blossom ever was, I'd say. Um, I don't know how much play it's actually going to see. That remains to be seen. It's definitely one I would not play in control like it used to be. Bitter Blossom used to get played in control in a tempo control type deck. I definitely because you got to buff these guys. I mean, that's just too much card commitment for me. There's your Battle Hopper, the dark Battle Hopper, I guess. So I guess there's a green background and the black background. All right, so next one that I played I played this deck, and this was, I had a crazy hand on this one. I opened up with the perfect hand. I had 2 resources and what was it, like 2 drops and 1 drop and like a burn spell or something, and it was like a 1 2 3 put my opponent on the back foot right away. Probably is, I'd have to agree with the guys, it probably was the best deck there just because of the amount of removal coupled with the just how quickly it can come through. I'm not sure if its worst matchup was the life gain deck or not, but you know, typically that's the bane of the existence. Of course, it has that counter to it in the deck, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes. But yeah, here we go. Put the Blaze Elemental into play. If you had a way of buffing that thing, you know, even more, even better. You know, of course, you got to look at the board state and decide when you're going to do this. And even then, you could save up 6 charges, and then all of a sudden you've got 2 of them. If your opponent, it really just keeps your opponent on the defensive for quite a while, and so you shouldn't have to worry at the beginning of the game. You shouldn't have to worry too much about them pushing through damage, because they should fear this. They should be looking at your charges and say, well, if I swing in, now I'm giving him free reign to swing back on me. And there's that 3/1. I mean, it's just a lot. It comes through right away, very, very fast. It's pretty much a vanilla creature, but this is a very well-costed vanilla creature. I mean, you only need 1. I mean, very, very well-costed vanilla creature there. So yeah, removal, always good. More removal is always good. Seems like a lot of things, like I said before, have a higher toughness than 1, but you could play this in your second main phase because damage remains to the end of the turn, the total turn. So this guy will help you kill things if you didn't kill them during combat. Get that 1 extra point in to go where you need it to go. So this is a card, again, you need to look at a lot of times like a burn spell, where it is that you're going to hold on to it and not necessarily play it right away. Yep, so this is the one that's the big counter to the biggest problem that Ruby is going to have, which is decks that gain life and simply hope that they'll gas out and I'll have too much life for them to deal with it and be able to stabilize my board position. But this guy is really, really good answer to that. It's not overpowered because it's just a 2/2. It does have Swift Strike, which is nice, which kind of makes it like a 2.5. Whenever I see Swift Strike, I always think, you know, it's like a 2.5 because, you know, it's a little bit better than the 2 back end that other people have, but it's not quite a 3, you know. So usually when I see any type of Swift Strike or anything like that, or, you know, first striking, it's like a 2.5 to me, you know, as far as like his actual damage output. It's a little bit better, but not quite. All right. So you can be quiet? Okay, you know, listen. So we're talking about the cards. This is my son, everybody. All right, so we already talked about this guy. Of course, really good, as we're just going to try to push through as much damage as possible. This guy, you know, the cost, there's very, very few 1-drops that are as nice as this guy. Even, again, going back to Magic, even in Magic, there's nothing, there's I can think of one actually card, Tattermage Maniac or something like that. I think it was very similar to this card. But this is going to be a great card when you're trying to play straight up aggro and you have a low resource curve like this deck does. This has the lowest resource curve out of all the decks. At least it should have. It says 25. I thought this was the one with 23. Apparently not. It should have had less resources given the curve on it. We'll talk about curves in another episode. Wow, you have no cards in hand. Yeah, this guy again is good all game. I mean, he's good on the first turn, and then once you empty out your hand, which you're inevitably trying to do anyways, he gets even bigger, and hopefully will allow you to finish the game. So really, really good card. I didn't play the Orc deck, unfortunately. It has a lot of similar cards from this and then some. But yeah, attacks each turn if able. Yeah, so again...
Say hi.
Yeah, you can say hi. You want to say hi?
Yeah.
Say hi.
Hi.
Hi. Okay. So this guy has pseudo evasion, is what I would say, in a board state where it is that he is the only one on the board, or he's on the board, and your opponent has a guy on the board. That guy isn't really even there because he can just basically attack in and say you can't block with him. So this is going to make those really big blockers or those really bad trades into really good trades for you, hopefully, when you're playing. Again, 3 for a 3/2 is really, really, really awesome. The only drawback here is you have to attack with them every turn, so if you are ever on the back foot, you have no blocker. And if your opponent has something really big that's just going to eat this guy, it's going to eat this guy. So the motto when you're playing Ruby and you're playing an aggro style like this is basically win fast or not at all, which is, it's just very much the feeling I get when I see this deck. The burn spell, 2 damage, pretty vanilla. Again, this is another example of some things I see people doing all the time. Turn 1, they'll have no 1-drop, and so what they'll do is they'll use this card and burn someone to the face. That's rookie mistake number 1 right there.
Get down.
Okay. Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. That's so that was a mistake that I made personally made a lot earlier on in my Magic career. You really need to save this for removal, and if the board state is such that you can finish with it, they're 2 damage away from death. That's when you burn them to the face. That's when it is that you want to burn them to the face, and that's pretty much all burn spells. You need to look at them that way. So you're going to sit there and hold them. Because you really just don't want... You need to answer their stuff. It should be open. Is it not open? All right, I'll open the gate. Inferno, another really, really awesome card here. I thought this was pretty awesome. It just, you should already be ahead, and so the damage it does to you is inconsequential. Your life total should be inconsequential to you. Basically, if they stabilize their board position, you probably already lost anyways. So the damage is what it is. Ragefire, another one that's exciting. I didn't, unfortunately, get to see it or play it even twice, by drawing another one. But this is a very, very exciting card. Obviously, the drawback to this one is when you're playing it the first time, you're paying a pretty hefty cost for it. But after the first time, I mean, this is one card where you might end a turn. If you have a lot of burn spells in hand, you might just play it just to shuffle it in. So this one's going to break the rule that we just set down with the other burn spell, whereas you're going to hold it and respond to your opponent's stuff, just because you want to draw more burn spells, possibly. But again, that depends on the board state and what you think things are going to be like. Again, I would probably still hold on to this and try to burn creatures with it. And there you go. That's the end of that. So there we go. I think that's all of them, all 5 of the decks that I went through. Just talk through some of the things I talked to with them at the dinner. Again, sat next to Dan Clark, and he was just talking about balance and design. and got some of his insight on things. They are really working hard on making sure that PvP is going to be balanced. Again, talking to Chris. Chris and I, again, we're like two peas in a pod. He's really great. Really wants PvE to be really good, and I do trust him because he's done so much DMing and different aspects of things. He basically described how it was that with the PvE content, if there's a PvP card that comes out that just hoses an entire deck, and all your opponent has to do is play 4 of it, then he needs to redesign the content. And so that is why, one of the biggest reasons why it's taking so long for us to see stuff come out, because they're still doing a lot of play testing and that sort of things. We haven't even seen more than half of the cards that have been released yet. Sat across from most of the people from Clan Blackblade. Guar was there. Got to talk to him. One of his big concerns that he talked about was just guilds, and he felt like raids were not going to be big enough, like they were, like some coming from a WoW background and other things. I mean, a lot of the people there were of a WoW background. Another interesting thing was that one of the, I won't say who, but one of the people that's going to be making up the instances that is at that level is a 16-year-old. That was like the youngest person in the room was the 16-year-old, and he's going to be doing something. I won't go into too much with it, but he's looking at the dwarfs very, very seriously for his instance that he'll be making up, which is that should be interesting. We'll see what happens there. They are willing to work with us. I personally, I won't go into that. Let's see, what else? I think I covered all the Hex stuff. Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much it. So I'm just going to go ahead and set up for to talk about more Hex stuff here. Just go ahead and grab some of that stuff, but I'm pretty much done talking about Hex in general now, and I'm just going to run through Gen Con, how I prepped for it, and just talk you through some of the things. If you're planning on going to Gen Con next year, this will be a separate segment. I'm just going to continue on the feed right now if anybody's watching, yeah, that's pretty much all the Hex stuff.